Hello everyone, I'm NecroVMX. Welcome to my channel, and you are listening to POTATOCAST. And yeah, I've kind of put off doing this particular one for a little while. I actually wanted to talk about this last week, but I had Juice. Juice was supposed to be the week before, but then he had stuff coming up, so we had to put it off. And then all this shit went down, and I was like, I really should do this announcement episode, but then I had Juice, and it was like, I don't know when I'll be able to have him on the show again, so let me just do this, and then I'll explain it all next week. As you see from the title, you guys know what happened already. You know that I lost my job, talking, of course, about the healthcare job, the one that actually, made money and paid the bills and whatnot. And I'm going to kind of walk you through what happened leading up to it, what happened there, what's happened since, and sort of like, my view of the future and how I'm doing and everything. And just sort of put it out there because I feel that I've always been rather straightforward with everybody, and I just want to just kind of get it off my chest in a way. A lot of people, of course, already knew about this. My family obviously knows about it. Like Tanya knows about it. A lot of my close friends know about it. I haven't told everybody simply because sometimes I'm not in the mood to talk about it because this is some bullshit, guys. This is some real bullshit. So, okay. I've never, and I always was very shy about talking about this job, or I've never mentioned the company's name and everything because I thought it was the respectful thing to do to not really mention them online because even though I'm not nearly as big on YouTube as I used to be, I have had in the past some pretty crazy fans, or well, I use the term fan loosely, but I've had some pretty crazy fans who've stalked me, so to speak, and I think that I try not to get anybody else involved. Like if somebody wants to come after me, that's one thing, but then when other people get involved, it becomes much more complicated and much more annoying to me. And I just realized that I sat down here, I got up a little while ago, sat down here and started recording. I haven't taken my medication yet, so let me do that real quick. This is the thyroid pill I gotta take real fast, so I'm actually looking at the pill bottle like, wait, I didn't take one yet. Hold on one second, guys. Okay. Oh, try to do that too fast. Okay, that's done. So anyway, for 4.5 years, I worked at a company called Progressive Health. And essentially what it was, because I talked about it here and there, and I would hint towards what I actually did. And I'm going to lay out your... I'm going to lay it all out, tell you exactly what it is I did, and just sort of give you a brief history. My phone is making sounds. I don't know what that's all about. I think the charger's loose. Whatever. Anyway, I worked at a company called Progressive Health, which is a 24/7 care facility that houses people who've suffered from what is known as a traumatic brain injury. And I mentioned that a little bit when I did the series about McJuggernuggets because he had claimed to have had a brain injury. And I could tell you that nothing that he said about brain injury is accurate. We know now that everything he does is fake. Literally everything. He's not ever uploaded a real video, I think. Even when he claims it's real, it usually turns out to be related to some bullshit story that he has going. And, even after he ended that series, he still talks about himself as if he had a brain injury, and that actually kind of really bothers me because knowing what I do about brain injury, I'm just kind of like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? You're spreading a lot of false information. So, over the past 4.5 years, I did learn a lot about brain injury and interacting with brain injured people. They call them clients. I always refer to them as patients because I think that calling them clients is kind of crazy. And I just realized that the recording time on this is rather short, so I may have to pause at one point and splice. But anyway, essentially, like I said, it was a 24/7 care facility. So I want you to think kind of in the terms of group homes, but not really. Like usually when you think of group homes, because I have worked at group homes in the past, that's sort of my background. You have 5 or 6 people to a home, which is a group, and like 3 or 4 staff, and you know, and it's very kind of regimented and everything. And this is a little different. They you know, they are homes, and they were all throughout the community. They had something like, you know, a dozen or more houses in my town and the surrounding area. And it was very different from group home type places that I worked at in the past, where you would be assigned to one house and you sort of like work with the same people all the time, and this and that, and that there were 5 or 6 people in a, Jesus Christ, 5 or 6 people in a house, and more than one staff. In this place, there were 1, 2, or 3 people in each house. Never more than 3. Sometimes it was 2 or even 1. And the staff was not always there. Some of them had staff 24/7. Some of them had staff only during daytime, and didn't have. I was a nighttime worker. I worked from midnight to 8 a.m. And you know, this job was really interesting because you were alone. You were alone. There were no other staff members present unless you were, you know, doing some sort of outing or whatnot, and then there would be multiple staff. But you know, so it was very different, and the level of violence was almost nothing compared to a lot of the group home facilities that I worked at in the past, where people would be violent, and there was takedowns and stuff like that. And when I started this job, they told me it was a hands-off facility, which means that they don't take down the clients, they don't really touch them for any reason, or any non-medical reason, I should say. So basically, that was a real big relief, because I'm older than I was when I first started doing this thing. I did this when I was 19, and I was able to, you know, wrestle people to the ground and deal with that kind of crap. Now that I'm in my 30s, I don't want to, you know, get into fights with people. I don't want to deal with this shit. So that was a big relief, that I never had to wrestle anybody or had anybody try to hit me. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I have had one client attack me at one point. This girl choked me, and you know, that was resolved in a non-violent fashion, and I got like 10 or 11 apologies from this person later on. And eventually I just told her, look, you need to just shut up with this, because I like already forgave you like 10 times, so we could just move on, please, and not get stuck in the past. And then she was like, oh, okay. And then that was it. But anyway, you know, I never had anybody try to like do me any really serious harm, so that was nice. And you know, and because I did work from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m., it was a really interesting thing. And you know, obviously they're sleeping a lot during that period, so it's kind of like, okay, you come in and you look over paperwork and you look over medications, and you sort of see what needs to be done, and you know, you clean up the house, and then, you know, the surround, you know, oh, clean this and clean that, okay, and then you know, and then you're sort of like, all right, waiting for them to wake up, or waiting for the time where you're going to go wake them up, and then in the morning it becomes chaotic, you know. But I always enjoyed working the shift and working with these people. I really liked it. There were a lot of things I didn't like about this job, and I'm going to get into that in a second. But actually, I'm just going to pause real quick here and just fix the recording time on here, because for some reason it got set to a half hour, and it just always makes me nervous. So hold on one second, guys. Okay, there we go. I just, you know, I think because I updated Goldwave. Goldwave is the program that I use for audio recording. It's really good, and for some reason it doesn't really have a setting for unlimited time when you set a recording space. So I usually had it set for like a really long, like something like 5-10 hours, just so it's practically unlimited amount of time. And it was set for 30 minutes, so I just added 2 zeros, and now it's 30 hours. So. All right, so back to talking about the job. So my title there was actually, we called ourselves CSCs, which stood for Community Service Coordinators, because this place wasn't all about controlling the patients and whatnot, and keeping them from the public, you know, and that kind of crap. It was all about it was a rehab facility. That's why I said it was sort of like a group home in its structure, but it wasn't really. It was a rehabilitation center. the goal was to get these people in there and treat them and have them be able to eventually leave. And it was, it wasn't going to be a nursing home or kind of facility where you'd want to, put a person there and have them there for the rest of their life. I think it does happen occasionally because some brain injuries are so severe and some cognitive abilities get so damaged, and and I don't want to get too much into the mechanics of brain injury and how people who are brain injured age differently and whatnot, but because I could talk your ear off all day. Like I said, for the past 4.5 years, I've immersed myself in this so much that I could talk your ear off about brain injury, really. And maybe one day I'll do sort of a thing about brain injury. But let me tell you guys something. The idea was that it was a more positive thing where we want them to get better and eventually leave and live on their own and integrate themselves into the community. And even working from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m., I always felt that I was very good at this, by the way. I always felt that I did this job very well. And I think a lot of the people on my shift saw it as, we're babysitting and that's it. They're sleeping, you clean, you get them up, you get them out, that kind of thing, that you're really not working towards their goals. And I always tried to make a point of actually working towards their goals and actually helping them, and talking with them and having conversations and interacting in those ways. And you might think, well, if that's the case, then why work that shift? And because that was what was convenient for me at the time. And I'll tell you about a big negative part of this experience, the experience of working at this place, a huge negative, and that's overtime. If you want overtime, man, this is the place to work, because they'll give you more than you could ever hope for, because there are so many negatives to the way they run the place, the management style and the way that it was run. And I don't want to get too much into detail because I'm not trying to badmouth anybody in particular, even though I absolutely could. I could talk your ear off about specific people that I think were toxic. But I could tell you that the way that the place was run was, I'm trying to put this in a nice way. What's a nice way of saying incompetent? I guess there isn't one. But anyway, it was just not well run, even though the heart was there, in the sense of wanting to do the right thing and wanting, having a good philosophy. And the upper management, I think, had the right idea, and it was the middle management that I feel that really became bureaucratic, and that's always bullshit. There's never a situation where bureaucracy is the answer. I cannot imagine a situation where bureaucracy is the answer. I do agree with structure. I do agree with organization, but bureaucracy is structure and organization for the sake of such. And that doesn't solve anything. It doesn't help anybody. And I think it's just an overly negative experience when you get involved in that. And that's sort of the experience I had been mired in. So that being said, getting into the specific issue of overtime, when you work two jobs, or when you're in a situation like a lot of people were, where maybe you work two jobs, or maybe you have school, because we did have a lot of people who worked and also went to school, or we had people who were single parents, we had people who had newborn babies, and I could tell you the amount of times I've seen these people either break the law or lean on it really hard. It was sort of crazy, and I always just sort of kept my mouth shut and just did my job, because that's sort of, I guess, the selfish way of going about it, really, when you're trying to protect your own livelihood. But let me tell you guys, the working conditions got worse and worse, and because of that, because the attitudes toward people in the CSC position changed so drastically, and I think that I came on board when it was starting to change, because I heard a lot of people who had been there, who were veterans when I was a newbie and I was starting out, and they were telling me how the place was getting worse, that it used to be a lot better, that they used to treat their staff with a lot of respect in that it was getting worse. And I didn't see it as being terrible because I didn't see it when it was amazing. I saw it when it was okay. But then over the past 4.5 years, I did see the respect decline. I saw sort of the amenities decline. And I would see them every once in a while. Morale would get really bad, and people, they try to throw you a bone or just try to do something. But people became so jaded, and nobody really cared. And what that leads to is a high turnover rate, or what's known as an attrition rate. And when you get that, you're short-staffed all the time. And when you're short-staffed, you have to find a way to fill those shifts. So we had people, like I said, if you want overtime, this is the place to work at. If you don't, that could be a problem. Now, for the first 2.5 years that I worked there, I had a supervisor that was very understanding of my situation, who would, what they would do if they had an open shift, like if somebody called out and they didn't have somebody to fill it in, is first they would try to find out if anybody that was on wanted to stay for the extra 8 hours to pull a double, and if they didn't, then they would try to call people and ask them. But if it came down to it, somebody would have to be forced to stay. They called it mandation, mandating overtime, and you would get mandated. And this one supervisor that I had was very understanding my situation of working 2 jobs. She would only mandate me if it was an absolute emergency, because she didn't believe that it was right to mandate people that had another job or that went to school. And I think that was fair. And when she did have to mandate people, she would rotate it in a sense. She, like if you got mandated, it was quite a while before you would get mandated again, because she it wouldn't be like 2 times in a week or 2 times in a month. It would be, well, they just got stuck, move on to somebody that hasn't got stuck in a while, that kind of situation. And it was spread out, therefore, and nobody felt like they were being targeted or that it was unfair in any way. And then the supervisor got fired for reasons that, I've heard one side of the story and I've heard a second side of the story, and they always say there are 3 sides to every story. There's what one person says, what the second person says, and then there's the truth. Do I really know the truth? No, I've heard both sides of the story, and I gotta say I would definitely side more with her than the company. So after that happened, things declined quickly. They brought in a new supervisor that was just, well, an asshole. We'll just put it to you that way. And I'll tell you guys, and by the way, you're going to be hearing me refer to work and refer to this job a lot in Let's Plays for quite a while, just because so many of them are recorded already. So just be aware of that. And it just got really bad, and they changed at some point. They changed the mandation policy to, if a person that was supposed to come in called out, whatever person happened to be in that house, that that was the person that got stuck. So it was, instead of it being done in a way that was fair or that made sense, it was done randomly, and which is based on luck. And you could be in a situation where you just almost never get stuck. I had people who were trainees, who were new people, that would come on, and I would explain to them what was going on, explain to them what the process was, because sometimes I felt that new people weren't aware that they could get mandated or that they could get stuck, and I would tell them that this could happen and you have to be prepared for that. I trained a lot of people there, and let me tell you something. Then I would talk to them like 6 months later, and they would tell me that they never got mandated, and it's 6 months. And I knew that we were so short-staffed that it was happening rampant, and that I in that 6 months, I would get mandated on an average of 15 to 20 times, and I'm not exaggerating. And when I brought this up with management, they told me I was exaggerating, but I was keeping track of it, and I know I was definitely not exaggerating. So if you think about it, that I'm coming in at midnight, this is for the last year of my life before they let me go. Imagine coming in at midnight and having a generally low-key shift until the last 3 hours, when it becomes very hectic and very physical, by the way, because we did I did tend to prefer working in the more challenging houses, and we did do a lot of things with lifting people and transferring people and the more physical aspects of it. And then getting stuck for another 8 hours and having to leave at 4 p.m. And then sometimes not 4 p.m. because the person that was supposed to come in at 4 p.m. would be late. Or there would be some sort of excuse where I'd wind up staying there till 5. But then having to come back in at midnight. And you think, wow, that sucks. And there were situations where that would happen, and you'd think, well, I could just call out instead. But then so you're screwing somebody else over. So I always tried to shy away from that as best as I could. I think I only did that like twice because I really didn't want to add to other people's problems, So I would get stuck till 4 p.m. and then you'd be expected to come in at midnight. And you'd think that, well, they wouldn't ever do it 2 days in a row, would they? And yeah, the answer is they would. At first, it seemed like they really wouldn't. And one time they did try to do that, and I told them, like, I just got stuck yesterday. And they were like, oh, sorry. But then eventually it got to the point where they just really didn't care. And, the schedule would come out, and there would be so many open spots. And people would just get really despondent that, and worn down. And it got to the point where I was exhausted all the time. I would come in tired. I would leave broken. And I never knew what time that I was going to be getting out. Ever. And it did get to the point that, yes, at some points I did feel like I was being targeted. And whether that's true or not is something that I probably won't know. But I did feel that I was being targeted when somebody who had been there for 6 months tells you that they haven't been mandated once, that they've even offered to do overtime and been told, no, it's okay, we don't need you. And then I'm getting stuck at least once a week on average. There would be some weeks where I wouldn't, and there'd be some weeks where I would get stuck twice, but I would always get stuck on average once a week. And when that would happen, and then I would have somebody tell me that they never got stuck in 6 months, what conclusion could I draw other than that the system was, at best, completely unfair? So that's sort of the situation that I've been dealing with. And if you guys have been noticing that the times that I've been uploading videos have been wildly, drastically different. If you've noticed that there are some days where videos don't go up, and then I'll have a day as a catch-up, or there was one time or a whole week I didn't get to upload, and then all of a sudden on one day I would just dump every video from the week on you all at once. This is why. To try to combat this, to try and still, do everything, to try to still burn the candle not only at both ends, but set fire to it in the middle with a blowtorch, I would, do some really crazy things, because I want you to understand that not only am I working this job where I'm doing all these insane hours and my sleep schedule is completely fucked, but I'm working at Kazara Studios, and I'm in a situation where Tanya has gone back to school and all of a sudden has all these other responsibilities that fall on me. And that is not a bad thing by any means. But all of a sudden, I have more to do. I have a company to run. And then I also have a family. And I also have a girlfriend. And I also have myself, too. And what's got to give? And then I have YouTube. And what's got to give? And a lot of times, unfortunately, it was YouTube. A lot of times, unfortunately, I just couldn't upload. So what I started doing, and I started doing this about a year ago, is uploading all the videos for a week on one day and then just publishing them throughout the week. So that way, all I needed was like 5 minutes to sit at the computer and publish videos. And then it got to the point, it got so terrible that I couldn't even do that. That I would upload videos and just never get the chance to publish them. And that is the reason that you haven't heard POTATOCAST in so long. That is the reason that the weekly movie reviews stopped. Because who has the time for that? That is the reason that it is April 10th and I hadn't even started on the May movie review feature. That is the reason that it is a May movie review feature. It was supposed to be February, and it had been February for like 7 years. And then I said, there's no way I could do it. There's no way I could watch all these movies and review them all and make all the videos and everything. I'm going to delay it till May. And then it got worse. So that's the situation that I'm in. I started getting sick. I started falling apart. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was in a situation where I'm thinking, this job is going to murder me. But I still fucking miss it. That's the bitch. That's what makes me so fucking pissed off. I loved the patients. I loved working with them. And you're going to be wondering now, okay, it's, we got to know, like, what happened? How'd you lose your job? And the answer to that is, I don't fucking know. I have no idea. I actually, let me tell you something. I'm going to give you the last week of this job in a nutshell. We had the snowstorm. We had this epic fucking snowstorm where 3 feet of snow happened. And when that kind of thing happens, you kind of expect that things are going to be difficult. You might get stuck. You might get snowed in at work. You know, that's bound to happen. But snowstorms are always very difficult to work through because not only are you required to do all the normal things that you're supposed to do, but you do have to shovel snow and keep everything clear. When it's 3 feet of snow, a physically demanding job becomes a physically punishing job. And what happened is the snowplow came by at about 4 or 5 a.m. I think it was more like 5 a.m., which was far too early because this snowstorm was going to be going on until 8 p.m. And it wasn't even half over at that point, really, because it didn't get super heavy, until after that. It was heavy, but it wasn't super heavy. And I'm out there shoveling and I'm out there, but I knew that I was not going to be able to get out, because even though I could keep shoveling the driveway in that whole area, there was a road that led to this place that now at 8 a.m. when I'm supposed to leave had not been plowed for 3 hours and was completely undrivable. And the person that was relieved me, who was supposed to relieve me at 8, managed to get there at about 9:30. Somebody got them there with like a 4-wheel drive, and I was like so elated that I actually was getting relieved. But there was no way for me to get my car out of there, and I was told, oh well, I don't want to mention the person's name, but one of the supervisors has a 4-wheel drive, and then you can call them. And so I tried to call the supervisors, and you know what they told me? They told me, oh well, what you can do is you could just sleep on the couch, and maybe we could use you later. And I'm like, you're not using me, okay? I got relief at 9:30, okay? I need to go home. I have things to attend to. I have my own shit to shovel at home, I didn't say that to them. This is what I'm thinking more. But I said, you can't get somebody here in a 4-wheel drive vehicle to get me out of here, or at least, call the plow people and have them plow out the road again so that I can get out of here. Let me tell you when I left. 5:30. 5:30. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about Pennsylvania labor laws. In the event of doing a double shift, you have to have at least 8 hours off before you're required to work again. That's the law in Pennsylvania, and is the law in most states. If you work 16 hours in a row, they're not supposed to put you on until 8 hours have passed. You have to have 8 hours off after a double shift. So, technically speaking, I was not legally required to come in at midnight. You know what my stupid ass did? I did it anyway. even though it was 5:30 and I didn't have my car because they sent somebody to come and drive me home, who then that person got stuck in my community, which was not finished being plowed. And I had to have a neighbor who was a very kind man drive me the rest of the way home. And I didn't get to sleep until like 6:30. And then, I'm supposed to be back in at midnight. And I called the supervisor and I spoke to him and I told him that I'm willing to come in at midnight. But I was scheduled at one of the easier houses. Like I said, I did prefer to work the more challenging houses. But it was a mix. Like I worked 3 days of the week at the harder house and then 2 days in an easier house. That's the way that my schedule had been for a while. And the first day at the easier house, I had been switched to a harder one that week. So it was already like I only have 1 day at an easier house. And I said, look, I'm willing to come in, but I need to ask you to please not switch me because I'm exhausted and I really shouldn't even be coming in. And he started making it like, oh, well, you're making things difficult on me, And I'm like, I wanted to say to him, like, look, I'm doing you a favor by even saying that I'm willing to come in. I shouldn't, but, I'm always like, oh, I don't want to screw somebody else over. But he said, oh, I'll see what I can do. So he didn't. And then I got stuck again. They called me and said, we have to mandate you because you don't have relief and this and that. I said, I got stuck yesterday till 5:30. And the supervisor I was talking to, she goes, in a house? And I'm like, yes, in a house. And I'm thinking to myself, what the hell did she think I was talking about? These people are losing it. So then, and then of course they couldn't get there at 4 to pick me up because they still don't have the car. And so then once again it's like 5:30, and then finally they come and they bring me to the other house where my car is, and then I have to dig my car out, and then I have to get home. And then guess what happened? I got stuck on the road because it still wasn't properly plowed out. The snowstorm's over, but the roads are just awful at this point. So now I can't get out. I can't get home. So I tried calling people. Nobody's answering. So I had to do the only thing that I could do. I had to call a tow truck. So a tow truck, then I have to wait about an hour for them to come. And then the guy was trying to do me a favor. He was trying to get me out of there without hooking me up, but that just kind of wasted more time. Cost me $90, by the way, to which I had not been recompensated by the company. They should have, but they didn't. And I'll get to that in a moment. I didn't get home till 7:30, and I was still supposed to come in at midnight. And so I did call out that time because that is ridiculous. At this point, I was about ready to drive myself to the hospital and tell them to admit me for extreme exhaustion, but I probably wouldn't have made it there. I barely made it home. So, that passed, and then the next week, everything kind of went a little bit back to normal because the snowstorm had ended and everything was cleared. But I actually wanted to go and talk to Human Resources about some of the concerns that I had regarding the way that the whole thing was handled. And I also wanted to talk to them about how much PTO I had, which is paid time off, how much vacation time I had, because I was getting really burned out and really exhausted. And I had a vacation coming up, which, by the way, I would be on vacation next week if I was still working at this place. So I had always done it where I'd schedule one vacation in April and one in October, but I wanted to see if I had enough to put an extra week in there somewhere because it was just too much at this point. I'm working ridiculous amounts of hours. On top of that, the Gazara Studio stuff. On top of that, YouTube stuff. On top of that, my own personal life. When do I have time to sleep at this point? And I tell you, I'm not even giving you guys all the grisly details. I'm giving you the broad strokes of my last week at this place. So, I worked Sunday through Thursday. So Sunday I just kind of did my thing. Monday I go to Human Resources. They don't come in until 9, and then I'm talking to this woman, her lovely older woman named Lillian, who she was the receptionist there, but she actually started out in the position of being a CSE, and she actually was the one who trained me. And she was the reason that I was so effective and so good at this job, because she was, first of all, amazing at the job, and secondly, a real tough bitch that would not let you through training until you were ready. You know, if you were trained by her, she was a fucking hard taskmaster. That it was like Hell Week at boot camp kind of situation, but it was the best possible thing because you came out ready. You came out with knowledge, you know. So it was one of those things where you hate it when it's happening, but when it's over, you look back on it fondly type of situations. I thought she was great. So I was talking to her, and she was telling me, oh, I don't think Ann was the HR lady. I don't think she's going to be here for a while because of this, that, and the other. And then she was always someone to go above and beyond. She actually texted her for me to see when she's going to come in. She's not going to come in until 10. And I'm like, you know what? I'll try her tomorrow. So I went home. Next day, turned out to be my last day. But do my job, go there at 9. I come in, and I say, hi, Lillian. And she says, hi, Ann's going to be here in about 20 minutes. So I was like, okay, I'll wait. So I sit, and the guys were talking, and phone rings. My phone rings, and I see the number, and it's one of the supervisors, and I'm thinking, why are they calling me at 9:15? And I thought it was strange, and usually in this situation I would not answer it, but because I was there in the building next door to the supervisor's office, and I thought it was very strange, I answered it. And he's like, could you, are you still in town? Could you come over? And I'm like, I'm right next door. And he's like, oh, yeah, we want to talk to you real quick. And we went in there, and what I was told was they were terminating my employment. And when I asked for a reason, I did not get a satisfactory reason. They actually refused to tell me what happened. I asked, I said, what specifically what happened? What incident led to this? And he told me, we like to keep things simple and not go into details. And in my head, I'm thinking, who the fuck cares what you like to do? You know, but what I said was, that's not going to do it for me. I need an answer. And he was like, well, that's what HR told me to tell you. And I was like, oh, and I was just waiting to talk to HR, you know. So, you know, and I've talked to a lot of people about this, and I know people all over the world and all over the country, and I always get the same answer. That's not right. They can't do that. Unfortunately, they can't. And I was very aware of this even, you know, way before this happened, is that the laws, tell you more about Pennsylvania labor law. Pennsylvania is what's known as a right-to-work state, which when you hear right to work, it sounds like something really positive and awesome, like, oh, I have the right to work. No, what it means is that you can be fired for any reason at any time without any prior notice. You could be doing an exemplary job, you know, that kind of thing. I mean, just to give you guys the background, I had not had any write-ups in the year leading up to this. I had recently gotten a raise, and I had recently gotten a bonus. And I also had recently gotten, I just forgot about this until just now, and it kind of pisses me off to think about it, but I had also recently got my yearly evaluation, which was late. It was supposed to be in October, but it came in like February, and it was a glowing positive thing. And it was one of those things where I felt, oh wow, you know, I can't argue with anything on this, and I just kind of signed it, and that was that. I was happy with it. I was usually happy with my evaluation. There's never really any problems. But and then they're like, yeah, you know, basically, as Juice Lee put it when I talked to him about this last week, yeah, oh well, you're fired, don't ask questions, you know. And people tell me that's fucked up. Unfortunately, they can do it, and they don't have to tell you a reason. They don't have to give you a reason. They can just say we're terminating your employment, you know. And I have so many theories about why this happened, you know. But you know, and then this guy, he says to me, I'm sure if you go over it in your head, you could figure it out. And let me tell you something. I've been over it in my head hundreds of times. Okay, and I'm a smart guy. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I'm no dummy. And I went over everything that happened, and I know that I didn't do anything wrong. But you know, and they were unwilling to give me any kind of real information on what exactly was the leading factor here. But especially at a time where they were so short-staffed that they need people desperately. desperately. So, you know, that was a hell of a thing. So, I have no idea what the fuck happened. I still don't, and I probably never will. And, you know, I do have these inroads where I can kind of get a peek at what goes on there. I talk to people that work there still. My sister does as well. My sister used to work there ages ago. And you know, to be honest, I'm still mad about what they did to her. They never fired her, but they kind of low-key did in a way. I'll explain to you what happened to my sister. My sister worked there, actually, before I did. But then she left. After she had her second baby, or actually when she was about to have her second baby, she decided to leave. Not really quit, but she decided to become what is known as a per diem staff, which is a staff that still technically works there, but isn't on the schedule, and can be called or can call in and say, hey, do you need anybody? And then they can fill in a lot of those open spots. But obviously my sister wasn't about to actually do that because she was, you know, 6-8 months pregnant, and then she had the baby, you know. So, but after all that was said and done, and, you know, the baby was a little older and she was ready to go back to work, she went back in and said, you know, you could put me on the schedule now. I'm ready to work. And they said, we're not hiring right now, which first of all was a lie, because they had ads all over the place and they were completely short-staffed. And secondly, she was already an employee, you know. So basically they just kind of told her to fuck off, you know. And I'm still mad about that. She's not mad about it anymore, but I'm still mad about that because I'm fucking close to my sister, and I think she also did an exemplary job. Not as good as me, but I do think that she was very good at this job, you know. But she called me up and said, is Progressive hiring? And I said, of course they're hiring. Why? Do you know somebody that wants to work at Progressive? And she says, no, I tried to come back. And I said, but you're per diem. You're already there. And she said, well, this is what happened. And she told me what I just told you. And she says, what do I do? And I said, well, you could go talk to HR, but let me tell you something. Right now, you don't want to come back. And she's like, really? And I was like, it's so much worse than it used to be. And she's like, it was getting bad when I was there. And I said, well, let me tell you, it's so much worse, you know. And let me tell you guys, don't think that for any second that I was not also, on top of everything else that I mentioned I was doing at the same time, looking for something else. Because, like I said, this place is killing me, murdering me. And I have Tanya breathing down my neck telling me, you should find something else. This place is killing you. And I have, you know, Julie like, are you okay? And it's just like, you know, no, I'm not, but I got to keep going because this is my livelihood. And now it's gone. And let me tell you guys, financially, I'm not in a completely awful situation right now, because I did get a tax check and a last paycheck, and I have family who can help me out a little bit. Rent for this month is taken care of. For next month, it might be a little sketchy, but we're going to see what I can do. I'm looking for another job, obviously, and put in for unemployment, obviously, but that's notoriously difficult to get in Pennsylvania, and notoriously difficult to get from this specific company. The only time that I've ever had unemployment was with a company where I got laid off, and this was a situation where my boss at that job really, really, really did not want to lose me, but he had to lay somebody off, and you know, people had been getting laid off, and I was sort of next on the chopping block, and he actually helped me get unemployment, which was really good, because it was difficult getting a job after that, because that was right in the very worst of the recession. But that's the situation I'm in. I want your comments. I want you guys to talk to me. I'm not going to be putting up anything this week because other than this video, we're going to resume regular uploads next week, because I had a lot of family stuff that kept me busy the last 2 days, and that prevented me from actually uploading anything. And then I had to do this video, and then blah, 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 blah. And I do want to dedicate more time this week to looking for a new job than I have been. I've been looking, but I want to dedicate a little more time, so I want to just kind of take a break from uploading until next week. So that's going to happen. But yeah, please leave me your comments. Let me know what happened. Let me know what you think. Let me know, you know, any suggestions. If it comes down to it, I might have to like set up a GoFundMe or something and just kind of see if anybody's willing to help. And of course, if you are, that's great. And if you're not, that's okay. But I'm trying to get through this. I'm trying to get through this. That's all I'm gonna say. And it's been a fucking depressing last couple of weeks because this did happen like 2 weeks ago, and it's been awful. And like I said, I don't know if I'm gonna be getting unemployment. I certainly paid into it for 4.5 years, but can you get your money back? Sometimes, yeah. But this place is very unwilling to let that happen, and I kind of think the vagueness of when they let me go and just wouldn't give me a reason. I mean, honestly, they could tell the unemployment office is anything they want now. And of course, my sister's hilarious. She says to me, "Did you sign anything?" And I go, "No, of course I didn't sign anything. I'm not an idiot." But yeah, I'm gonna end it here and just kind of throw this up and let you guys know what has been happening. And I know if anybody's been wondering about the haphazard, that's the word I was looking for earlier when I was struggling for a word, the haphazard upload schedule, the crazy times that videos are going up, the crazy situations where videos are going to go for days and then all go up, why I had to delay the February feature, why I got to buckle down and get that May feature done. I really want to do that, but that'll be like, I guess I can do that in the evenings and whatnot. But just like why I haven't done POTATOCAST, why I haven't been doing movie reviews, why a lot of stuff that I wanted to do is fell by the wayside. And it kills me because that tax check I got, I was going to use that to buy more equipment for YouTube stuff. I was going to use that, to improve the channel, I believe. And I was gonna get more equipment. I was going to improve things. I was going to do more videos. But that just can't happen now. I have to worry about rent. I have to worry about food. I have to worry about all sorts of shit. I don't have health insurance now. That's another thing. I have to worry about medication. I have 3 months worth of medication, thankfully, but then after that, it's like it becomes a lot more expensive. So, but hopefully it won't come to that. Hopefully I'll have another job by then, and hopefully something a little more sane. It doesn't have to be in this field, but I would prefer it to be local and to pay enough where I can pay my bills. Obviously, I would love to make enough money working at Kazarth Studios to pay my bills. I don't need to be rich. I don't need to be well off, but I would love to be able to just do Kazarth Studios, put everything into these games, put everything into these stories. I would be working 68 hours a week on this if I could just pay the bills doing it, what I love, but that's not a reality yet. But I guess I could mention that we did just release Chronicles of a Dark Lord, Tides of Fate Remastered on Steam, so check that out. And just how crazy is it, by the way? I just want to end with this. That for the past year or so, we've been working on the Tides of Fate Remastered game. And I've not gotten to mention it once until now. I didn't get to put up a trailer. I didn't get to put up previews. I didn't get to talk about it. I wanted to do an interview with Tanya, and I wanted to have all sorts of things. There was a point where I was going to help Tanya with her channel. By the way, me and Tanya were doing a Let's Play of Final Fantasy IV over on her channel. It just kind of ended. I mean, we would like to go back to it. And what happened? We both got so busy that we couldn't do it anymore. So a lot of things, and we had all sorts of things planned for Tanya's channel that never happened. So, a lot has been sacrificed, but I want to let you guys know what's going on. Leave me your comments, please. Ask me your questions. It could be about this subject. It could be about anything. I want to interact with you guys. See you next week with more POTATOCAST and more uploads.